Should the WBC expand to 24 teams? Thanks to Adam McDonald for asking this question in the comments of last Friday's video. Gave me the topic for today's video. As always, if you have any video suggestions, let me know in the comments. Okay, so the WBC has been over for almost 3 months now. It was a big success. Over 1 million in attendance, shattering the previous record. Nearly 4.5 million viewers for the championship game in the US. Japan beat the last Super Bowl's ratings for every single game they played in, and they didn't even have the highest rating. That belonged to Puerto Rico. This year's WBC was the first one with the field expanded to 20 teams from the previous 16, and that added to the excitement. Panama was thrilled to get back to the WBC after being absent from the last two. Nicaragua, a well-known baseball country, made it for the first time. In Great Britain and the Czech Republic, baseball was talked about by major media outlets for the first time. Absolutely no one is saying they should go back to 16, at least no one that I've heard from. Some are calling for further expansion to 24. More is better. Others are saying 20 is the right number. Don't overdo it. Let's look at both sides of the argument, then I'll give my opinion, and you give me your opinion in the comments. First, how would expanding the field be a good thing? Well, every edition of the WBC has been getting bigger and bigger, and they'd like that to continue. They want this to be as big as possible. When you think of big international tournaments, the first one that comes to mind is probably the FIFA World Cup, and that has 32 teams. Someday it would be great to see 32 teams competing in the WBC. The more competition there is, the better it's going to be. Average attendance has gone up in every WBC. In this year's edition, it was just short of 25,000. There's still plenty of room to raise that number, but at some point, attendance will reach a point where it can't get any higher. It's nice to imagine a WBC final played in a large stadium in front of 70,000 fans, like you see in some other World Cups. But baseball as a sport just doesn't work well in large venues like that. If you want to adapt one of those venues for use in baseball, you have to eliminate some of the seating, and the best you'll get is around 50,000. And a lot of times when you try to do that, it creates a terrible viewing experience for those in attendance. So there may be a limit to average attendance, but there's no limit to the total attendance, so long as you keep adding teams. More teams, more games, more tickets sold. It'll never have the highest attended championship match, but it could one day be the highest attended sports event overall. I'm not sure what the format would be for a 24-team field. You could have 4 groups, each with 6 teams, but that seems like too big of a number for each group. 6 groups of 4 would work, but then you end up with 12 teams in the second round, and I'm not sure how they would do that. But they would work something out, and it would definitely result in more games played. As for the ratings, there's no limit to the number of people viewing from their homes. The WBC has the potential to draw millions more viewers in the US, if the event is marketed properly. But as for the rest of the baseball world, the event is already so big, they could reach peak viewership very soon. When you've got half of the TVs in a country tuned into the WBC, it's hard to expect much more. So why not add 4 more countries? If a country has its team participating in the WBC, more people in that country will watch it. That is a fact. In Panama and Nicaragua, I'm sure there were quite a few people watching previous WBCs, but not in nearly the numbers that people were tuning in for this year's event. And in the Czech Republic and Great Britain, a lot of people were tuning in for the first time ever. And that's another goal of this tournament, to grow the game. For countries that don't have an existing baseball culture, the only way you're going to get them to take an interest in the game is through an event like this. Expanding the field from 16 to 20 allowed for those 4 countries to qualify for the WBC and add to the success of the event. They might have qualified otherwise, but it would have been at the expense of another country. Adding more teams to the field ensures that all deserving teams are there and no one is left out. In the 2023 WBC, we were left without Brazil, Germany, and South Africa, all of which have active Major League players this season. And now for the other side of the argument. I think everyone would like to eventually see the field expanded, but it's got to be done at the right time. After all, if growing the event were as simple as adding more teams, they just have a 64-team tournament right now. But of course that wouldn't work. Japan can get 40% of TVs tuned in and 45,000 in attendance when they're playing Korea, but probably not if they're up against Turkey. Puerto Rico had a rating of over 60% when they played the Dominican Republic, but I guarantee there wouldn't be the same enthusiasm if they were playing Denmark. So you've got to draw the line somewhere, and where is that line right now? 20 or 24? Imagine if the 2023 WBC had been a field of 24. 2 additional teams from each of the 2 qualifiers would have advanced to the main tournament. That would mean Germany and Spain from one qualifier, and Brazil and Argentina from the other. Germany and Spain were just as good as Britain and Czech Republic on a good day. Brazil can be as good as Panama or Nicaragua. Argentina played tough against Nicaragua. so the level of competition wouldn't really suffer from bringing those 4 teams in. But then you would have 4 more teams with no chance of reaching the final round. With the exception of maybe Brazil, those teams would have no chance of even reaching the second round. A successful tournament is one where anyone can beat anyone. The favored team is never safe. We've seen in the FIFA World Cup where a team can reach the final and then 4 years later not even qualify. That makes every match exciting. In the WBC, there were already a few teams out of the 20 that didn't stand a chance. It was nice to have them there. They made great underdog stories, but a few is all you need. And for those teams with no chance of winning the WBC, just reaching the WBC was a big accomplishment for them. That's what made the qualifiers fun to watch. In the 2 qualifiers, 3 or 4 of the 6 teams were pretty evenly matched, but only 2 spots were available. If 4 teams qualified, it would take that fun away. So, what do I think? I think 20 was the right number for this year's WBC, and in the short time between now and the next WBC, nothing is going to change that. I do want to see the field expanded to 24. Maybe in 2029 we'll be ready. Countries around the world are getting better at baseball all the time. But let's not rush it. The Rugby World Cup has 20 teams, just like the WBC. The Cricket World Cup, only 10. It seems like we've got the right number for now. I said before that more people will watch the event in countries that are participating, but they'll be more excited about it if they feel like they've earned their qualification, rather than it just being given to them. The first 2 WBCs were invitation only, so qualification really was just given away. Countries like South Africa and China were able to just walk in without having earned anything. As a result, it wasn't a big deal in either country. South Africa hasn't made it back since the qualifiers started. China has always managed to avoid relegation to the qualifiers. In fact, they would have had to play in the qualifiers last year if the WBC had not expanded. Assuming the field remains at 20 for the next one, China will have to play in the qualifiers, and there's a very good chance they will not make it. For the first time, there will be no China in the WBC. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe China needs to sit one out and then try to fight their way back in it. Then it will actually mean something the next time they're able to play in a WBC. But what do you think? What's the best number of teams for the WBC? 16, 20, 24, 32? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya.